Okay, I just unmuted myself. Um, I only learned about this competition yesterday, and I was so excited about it that I got a Corona cut. Now, if you don't know what a Corona cut is, it's when you cut your own hair at home during the stay-at-home order, or or you have your partner or your wife or whatever cut your hair. There's actually a bunch of videos on YouTube of people showing you how they cut their hair. And there's one fellow who I really enjoyed who allowed his two children to cut his hair with an electric razor. It kind of looked like three angry lawnmowers had run over his head. But that's what we need during this time. We need some humor. So I'm doing humor. I'm going to do some Corona shtick, you might say. Um, so the first thing I want you to know about me is that I don't like to take directions. I don't like to read directions. I don't listen very well when somebody tells me directions and so on. And this actually has been a problem during this whole crisis. We've been isolating at home since March the 6th, just me and my wife. That's it. Nobody else has come in the house. And we've had to do a whole lot of adjustments. When I talk about not taking directions or not listening well to directions, I want to give you an example. This goes back a ways, but the example is that several people said to me over the years, a really healthy thing is to drink apple cider vinegar and honey every day. And I heard this, and finally I decided I'm going to give it a try. So I get a glass and I pour in 8 ounces of apple cider vinegar, and I put in 1 tablespoon of honey, and I stir it up. Oh my God, it was horrible. So I thought, well, I guess maybe I should put in a second tablespoon of honey. So I put in a second tablespoon of honey, tried to drink it. I couldn't drink it. I called my friend and he said, what are you, crazy? You put in water, you put in 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, 1 tablespoon of honey. That's it. I'm like, oh, I guess I should have listened when you told me about it in the first place. Well, you take a guy like that and you introduce him to all the new things that we have to go through when it comes to the coronavirus. And I must say, it's been an incredible challenge for me. And sometimes it's been kind of shocking or whatever. So for example, early on, I go outside, my neighbor's walking his dog, he walks by, I go over to talk to him and he says, stop, don't come close to me. And I'm like, oh, you mean the virus? Yes, don't come close to me. You have to keep your social distance. So I'm like, oh, okay, all right, I'll do that. So I got it. That was good. It sort of imprinted. Um, and then one of the very next things that happened was a couple of days later, this UPS truck pulls up outside my house. And this young lady gets out and she has a package and she comes down the stairs up to my front door. I'm watching her out my glass window. And she smiles and she holds out the package like, so come outside and I'm going to give you your package. And I'm like, no, you're not. No, I'm not going to take the package. Put it in the chair and even though that was fine. She put it there and so on and so forth. But if before the virus, this would have been a Norman Rockwell moment. She's young, she's Black, she's smiling, she's handing me a package. I'm an old white guy with a beard. I'm going to take the package. I mean, it was such a great picture. UPS could have used it. Not now, not now. So now I've got a package out there. So what do I do with the package? So I've been listening to a bunch. Given that I don't pay attention to directions, I started listening to different kinds of advice about how to deal with this situation when something arrives at your door. And so I put on the disposable rubber gloves, and I go out and I get the package, and I take it around to the back, and I cut it open, and I can't remember what the contents were. I put the contents on a counter, and then I'm not quite sure what to do with the content. Let's say it's a book. Now, how do I know that 24 hours ago somebody didn't sneeze on that book? I have to be careful. Fortunately, I was one of the first people to read the article in the New England Journal of Medicine. It was put online, and I read it 18 minutes later about how long coronavirus lives on surfaces. It was a little complicated, a little difficult, but what I got from it was put something down, leave it for 72 hours, and you're fine. So that's what I did. And when the mail comes, when any package comes, that's what we do. We just put it on the counter and we leave it alone, and we don't touch it for 72 hours. We actually, in order to remember, because now we've got different piles of mail from different days, we write sticky notes and we put them there, we put the date, and then we say, oh, okay, the mail's usually delivered at 4. It's now 3 days later, that's 72 hours. So now we can open the mail. Now, the thing that is difficult, again, this has to do with directions, is, so what do you do about produce? If food is delivered to your house by Peapod, and so it's sitting out there outside, what do you do with the food? And so I went on the internet, I listened to some YouTube, and there was a general practitioner from the Midwest who said, I'm doing this to help my friends and neighbors and so on and so forth. So here's what you do. If you have produce, you wash it in the sink with water and bleach. And I thought, oh, well, that sounds okay. Turns out the next day I get an email saying, if you saw that video, don't do that, because you shouldn't be eating food that's got bleach on it. I'm like, oh, okay. All right. So I better be careful about that. A different challenge was that my son called up and he said, you know, Dad, this is it. It's the collapse. This is it. We're going down. I mean, the banks are going to fail. You should go out and get some cash, and as much as you can. And you should put it away for when the banks collapse and the ATMs don't work anymore and so on. Okay, so I go out and I get some cash. And again, with the rubber gloves, I put the card in the machine. When I take the card out, I wipe it off with a sanitary wipe. I put it back in my wallet. Now I have the cash. I put it in a little plastic envelope and I bring it home, and I'm thinking, what am I going to do with this cash? How do I know that somebody didn't sneeze on my cash or cough on the cash? Oh my God. So I laid it all out on the counter, and I got a bottle of Lysol and I sprayed all of those $20 bills. And then I flipped them over with gloves on, and I sprayed all the back of the $20 bills. And after 3 days, I put them in a plastic bag. And then I realized that in this time, in this era, nobody wants cash. They don't want to take cash. They're afraid of cash. Somebody might have sneezed on it. And just because I hand it to them and say, hey, I didn't sneeze on this cash, doesn't mean they're necessarily going to believe me. Now, I'm doing some Corona Schtick here, but in fact, it has been difficult. We have a 5-year-old grandson. We adore this grandson. He's with us 3 days a week. He loves us, and he crawls all over us. He's at that stage where he just loves being with his grandparents or his parents. He's not at the stage of saying, get out of my life, but first, could you take me and Mabel to the mall? That stage, you know, that stage. Our kid, in fact, our daughter went through that stage, and this is her son. So we adore this stage. We want to be with him, and we can't, because his mother's not practicing the quarantine, and he's a vector. Our grandson is a vector. So this has been extremely hard. And what we've worked out, just to share with you, is we realize there's no reason he can't visit when it's nice and he can be outside. And he loves to do races with me. In part, he loves it because he always wins. Even though I get very close, he always wins. Is that my 5-minute signal? That sounded very interesting. Okay, so I want to tell you what I've learned. So we had a good play date actually, and I'm feeling much better. So I want to share with you 3 things that I've learned from the coronavirus experience, and of course we're not done with it yet. The first thing I've learned is that scientists are incredibly creative. I've just been fascinated by all the different ideas about what you might do, not Trump's ideas, but ideas. I mean, scientific ideas, okay? That's why I didn't drink the bleach. That's why I didn't inject the Lysol. But one of the ones that caught my attention today was there's a real difference between male fatality and seriousness in getting this disease and female. It's something like 80% of males, 20% of females have the most serious reaction. So some doctors started puzzling about this and they said, what could the factor be? Could it be estrogen? Let's run an estrogen study. Now, the only problem was they had to convince a bunch of guys to put estrogen patches on their arms. And they said the younger the guys, the more difficult it was to convince them to do this study, because the guys were like, well, if I put this patch on my arm, am I going to, develop, And they were like, no, it's only a week. It's only a week. You'll be fine. You'll be okay. So that's the first thing. Scientists are really creative. The second thing is, I would have said this is a black swan. Turns out they interviewed the guy who wrote the black swan. He says, this is not a black swan. This is a white swan. This was completely predictable. He's right. It's true. The third thing is that just before we shut ourselves in on March the 6th, about a week before, I resigned from the chairmanship of a political committee because I felt I was overstretched. And in stepping down, I wrote a letter to the rest of the committee and I said, I want to put more retirement in my retirement. Little did I know. So the last thing that I just want to share with you is be careful what you wish for. I'm so retired now, I can hardly stand it. So thanks for letting me share, as they say. That's it.